Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Soils for Life. I am Ryan Christensen of BKR Farms here in Grace, Idaho. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about strippers. And no, not that kind of strippers. We're talking about stripper headers made by Shelbourne out of Australia. And what makes a Shelbourne header so important for a no-till operation is what we're going to be discussing today. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Shelbourne header is, or a combine header for that matter, when you are out cutting grain, you have an attachment to the front of the combine called a header, and you have a conventional header that has a knife system. Here's a video of one. The knives run back and forth, and the reel goes around and kind of feeds the grain into the machine and cuts off everything down to a certain height, brings all the material into the combine and processes it. You get the grain into the bin and everything else gets thrown out the back end. Now, this is how grain's been harvested for a long time, ever since the advent of the combine. And it's a great system. I mean, it's been around and it works. But for anyone who's trying to go to a regenerative farming, trying to, plant without cultivating, doing a no-till system, you'll find that using a conventional header leads to a lot of problems. And that's what we found here at BKR Farms when we made the switch to no-till, is that you get a lot of residue on the ground with a conventional header, and that leads to a lot of problems. You get what they call hairpinning, which is when the drill is going in, trying to make a cut into the ground. Instead of getting into the dirt and getting a good seed to soil contact, you're pushing that material into the ground. The seed is getting dropped on top of it, and then when it gets covered, you're not getting any seed to soil contact. So the seed dries out fast. If it does sprout, a lot of times it won't sprout because that residue is keeping any moisture from getting to the seed. So it leads to a lot of problems. I heard of guys using these Shelbourne stripper headers and really liking them, and so I thought, hey, let's try one out. So last fall, I bought one, and it arrived. It was a used one out of Kansas. And within about a day of operating it, my dad and brother were like, we got to get a second one for our second combine. And so we got online, we found a second one in Kansas, and we cut the entire year with them and absolutely loved them. And here's this, I put together this video to explain some of the things that we love about the Shelbourne stripper header. One of the things that jumps right out to you when you start harvesting with a Shelbourne stripper header is speed. You can flat get across a lot of ground in a hurry. Here in this video, it shows us cutting a 110 bushel hard white spring wheat crop. And normally in the past, when we've had a hard white, the same variety and the same, kind of yield, you're looking at about 2 to 2.5 miles per hour at the max. Now these are category 8 New Holland combines, so these aren't small machines that are running it. And you still had to go that slow because you're bringing in a lot of material to handle, and especially with over 100 bushel crop. Now with these Shelbourne stripper headers, we are cruising at about 5 miles an hour. That's double. When we cut some of our dry farm grain, we were up into the 8 to 9 miles an hour, just flying with these machines. And it makes cutting grain a little intense at first, but once you get used to it, it'd be really hard to go back to a slower machine. So as you can see in this video, you're just able to cut and get across the ground a lot faster. Another advantage of the Shelbourne stripper header is you're not bringing in all that residue into the machine. So the way it works is you've got these blades that are going in a circle on a rotor, and it's just literally plucking those heads right off and throwing them into the machine. So the only thing you have going into your combine are heads, and that's knocking the kernels out and it's getting to the bin. And because of that, you are not getting near the amount of residue that's going out the back end of the combine, which takes care of the hairpinning and being able to cut through it with your drill. And second of all, you're not getting the wear and tear on your machine. You're handling literally 80 to 90% less material than you were with a conventional header. As you can see in this video, the only thing coming out the back end is a little bit of head chaff and some dust. And with that, just way less wear and tear on the combine and a lot cleaner sample in the bin. The next advantage I'm going to talk about is being able to get into the field fast to plant. Now, the key to success in no-till, in my opinion, I mean, I'm not an expert, I've only been doing this for 5 years, is you've got to plant when there's moisture, and you got to be close behind the combine if you want to go in with a cover crop or a second crop behind your combine. And with conventional headers, the first 4 years, this wasn't possible. To get rid of the residue, we were, baling it, and then you had to wait for the baler, you had to wait for the straw to be removed, and it just caused a lot of issues. With a stripper header, you're in the field the exact same day. You're able to be cutting grain and start planting. Like in this picture right here, literally I am cutting grain on one half in the exact same field that I'm planting. And then as soon as the combine's gone, the drill's done about an hour later. So with being able to cut grain and drill on the same day and get the irrigation going, I saw a huge improvement with my cover crop. So here's this little 40-second video that I made. I planted on August 28th, and this video was shot on September 3rd or 4th. So take a look. So what we have here is some cover crop that was planted 1 week ago with a regular John Deere 1890 drill with a stripper header. I took this shovelful right over here, and you can see in this thick, heavy laid down grain, and then just laid the shovel here and peeled back the two parts. You can see all the roots have already grown. Got my broadleafs, my grasses are starting to come right there, a little low, but we were stripping this and running the drill on the same day and had the water on that night. So 7 days to emergence. The last advantage that I'd like to talk about with a stripper header is water retention. So being the first year of being able to do my stripper header and my grain, I went out on January 12th and did some measurements of my snow. And so here you go. You can see here on my first So here's my snow depths. So this first picture is taken on a winter wheat field planted right behind a harvested potato crop. Now this is no stubble. This would be simulated to a dry farm summer fallow field. Absolutely no cover on the ground, and you can see here only 9 inches of snow. Now let's take a look at the next picture. This is conventionally cut grain. This was grain that I harvested right before my stripper header showed up. So the stubble is about 8-9 inches tall, which is actually pretty tall for a conventionally cut header. And you can see in this picture, you're only looking at maybe 10 or 11 inches of snow. Now this last picture is my crop that was cut with a stripper header. And you can see 17 inches of snow. So 9 inches bare soil, 11 inches of conventional cut stubble, and 17 inches. Now if you take this into a dry farm field, because you're probably thinking, well, this is all irrigated, 100 bushel plus, of course you're gonna have a lot of stubble. These next pictures, this is a dry farm field, went 7 bushels per acre with barley. Horrible crop with the drought condition, and I'm still able to get 7 to 8 inches of snow capture. Now this other picture you can see here, this is a summer fallow field right across the road, bare soil, and you can see that 2 inches, and I had to walk a long ways to find 2 inches of snow. Most of the time it was less than a ½ inch. So huge snow capture. So what does this mean? What does this translate to? Well, I called a guy, a friend from mine from the NRCS, to come out and do some water content measurement. And this is what he found out. So snow in the stripper field that was almost 17 inches deep had 4 inches of water content. 4 inches. Across the road, bare soil had 11.5 inches of snow, almost 12 inches of snow. Pretty good, 4 inches of snow, but only 3 inches of water content. 25% more water. And when you're dealing with only 11 inches of annual rainfall here, as we deal with here at BKR Farms on our dry land, getting 25% more water capture in the winter is huge. 1 inch of rain can make or break a crop. So the stripper header is an amazing tool at capturing snow. Now, if you want to stay tuned, I'm going to be creating another video. I've been doing a whole winter-long research project of some bare soil and stripper stubble that I've planted winter wheat in, and I'm using some cool instrumentation, and I'll be putting that video together shortly, and hopefully I'll have it out soon so you can check it out. But now stripper headers are not without problems. There are some drawbacks, some learning curve, but this video is not going into those. The video here, if you want to check those out, I'll message me down on the bottom, and maybe I'll make another video of some of the drawbacks of a stripper header. But this video, hopefully you learned something about why stripper headers are important in a no-till operation and how they can be your best friend in being successful to have a regenerative soil practices. So thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you later from Soils for Life.